Welcome, everybody. I am your host here at the Credit Union Connection. I'm here today with Dennis Cail and Elizabeth McCluskey. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's great having you all because you're doing something really cool. Dennis, you're with Zirtue, and Elizabeth is with TruStage Ventures Discovery Fund. And why don't we start with you, Elizabeth? Talk a little bit about your role and what TruStage Ventures Discovery Fund is about.
Yeah, so we are the venture arm of TruStage, our parent company, which is an insurance and financial services company serving middle market consumers with affordable financial protection products. And the aim of our ventures arm is really to invest in and support promising and emerging fintech companies that could either be partners for TruStage as we think about distribution and diversification of our product set, and then also very importantly, that can be partners to the credit union ecosystem. I think TruStage has a long history of working with credit unions and distributing our products through credit unions to their members. And we just see a continued need for credit unions to evolve and adopt fintech. But it tends to be something like the landscape is very complex and moving very quickly. So we find that partnerships are a great way for credit unions to adopt technology. And so we want to surface and invest in some of those promising fintechs and connect them to credit unions and help create, these fruitful partnerships between fintechs and credit unions. And Dennis obviously can share more about that, but Zirtue is a great example of one of our portfolio companies that I think really kind of lives into that.
Right, and it's related to you guys recently. The Discovery Fund is specifically for minorities, women, people who have historically been disadvantaged as far as getting investment funds into their startups. But you also recently added veterans, which Dennis is also. Dennis, you go ahead and introduce yourself a little further and the company.
Sure. Dennis Cail, co-founder, CEO here at Zirtue. We're a fintech platform. Our mission is to drive financial equity and inclusion. And we do that by simplifying loans between friends and family for bill pay purposes. And we automate the repayment process to kind of take the awkwardness out of it. And we partner with billers, including companies like AT&T, utility companies, healthcare providers as well. And so we're really trying to meet people where the pain point is to help them keep their lights on, keep their car running, pay their rent, get access to healthcare. So very much a mission-driven business. And if you look at the data from the Federal Reserve Bank, Americans lend and borrow over $200 billion a year with each other. So Zirtue is really on a mission to try to help consumers unlock that $200 billion. And by the way, that's $200 billion out of the $4 trillion that Americans pay in bills every year. So it's really something that we're using as an alternative payment method. And TruStage, specifically a Discovery Fund, was one of Zirtue's first investors, and we could not be more excited to have them as partners, and very excited about this new veteran initiative that they have going now. So
yeah, and it sounds like you just like you're saving the paper shuffling, like me having to call my son and bang on his head, like, why aren't you paying me back? But so I really want to get into that and how it actually works. But first, I want to talk a little bit more a broader perspective as far as the disintegration of the primary financial institution. Like it barely exists anymore, because not only I talked to somebody the other day about the deposit side, but also on the payment side. Obviously, you can I pay my kids in Venmo or when they want to borrow money, or they pay me back in PayPal, whatever it is. And so, like, credit unions can have the potential to be cut out of the system entirely. Can you talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing and how you guys are trying to solve for that?
yeah, for us at Zirtue, I mean, we're really trying to help credit unions meet their members where the pain point is, right? Because if you look at the data, 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and that same percentage cannot afford to pay a $400 unexpected expense. So that means that if and when a credit union member, that's part of that data set that I just talked about, let's say they have a flat tire on the way to work, they're going to have to make a decision on if they're going to get their tire fixed so they can get to work the next day or pay their light bill, right? And really, Zirtue is an alternative payment method that's really powered by friends and family because credit union members can't go into the credit union and get a bill pay loan, right? And so that's really where friends and family come in, and Zirtue Pay comes in to really help them unlock that value add versus value loss for their credit union members that are stressing and struggling at times. And we just really want to be there when they need that support. And by the way, that's what credit unions are in the business of doing. And, credit unions are all about members, all about the community. And, it's just a really strong synergy for, fintech like Zirtue to really partner up with credit unions to help them fulfill that need for their members.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm happy to add kind of the higher level perspective that we see from the Ventures Fund, which is, I think there was sort of this explosion of direct to consumer everything, and that applied to fintech as well, right? Where you could get everything sort of from your phone, from your pocket, like access to funding, access to your bank account. And I think fintechs obviously capitalized on that wave more quickly than some of the traditional banking and credit union providers did. So there was kind of a rush to that consumer wallet that fintech sort of initially won. And I think what we're seeing now is some of the larger financial institutions and credit unions are saying, we used to think fintechs were the enemy, but I think a certain subset of fintechs actually can be really great partners, and we can use the technology that fintechs have developed along with that trusted relationship and community orientation that we have to actually deliver the best product and the best service to that consumer. But it really takes the partnership from those two, the fintech and the credit union, to deliver that, because the fintech is bringing oftentimes the technology and able to stay kind of apace with what the changes and the trends are. And the credit union has that foundational connection to the consumer. So as you said, I think the consumer is overwhelmed right now because they do have so many products with so many different partners and financial institutions. And I think people actually would love to have more of their checking account, saving account, investment account, credit card, payment options within one place. I think we're all kind of reaching this point of fatigue and overwhelm. But up until now, there hasn't been sort of a satisfactory option to get everything in one place. And I think that's where we can start to help build that bridge where fintechs working with credit unions can deliver a superior kind of member experience and member offering.
Right. The credit union, as you mentioned, kind of credit unions fell behind. They were always leading in that member service. And when technology became so much more important, as if it weren't already, during COVID, their member satisfaction dipped a little. And so by bringing the fintechs and the credit unions together, like you all are, it really helps the credit unions to have that tech foundation without having to build it themselves, for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, while credit unions are 100 years old, friends and family are the biggest lenders. So explain to me a little bit how Zirtue works, between I'm lending my son money to make his car payment this month. How's that going to work? And how do I collect my money?
Yeah, so a couple things there, Sarah. So first and foremost, before you can make a loan request on Zirtue, you are required to link your bank account and your debit card to your Zirtue profile. And you're agreeing that Zirtue is going to draft your account, your credit union account, and your debit card every month based on the terms that you've set with your friends. And so it's important to note that these are zero interest rate loans between friends and family. They're setting their own terms. I need $400 to pay my car payment, or my credit score is going to get dinged, or I'm going to get sent to collections, or even worse, my car is going to get repossessed, right? And so I don't have enough on my credit union account. I don't have enough on my credit card to make this payment, but my mom, Sarah, is more than willing to help me out in a responsible way. So I'm going to send her a loan request through Zirtue. I'm going to link that credit union, to that loan request. And once my mom approves that loan, instead of the money going to your son, Zirtue sends those funds directly to the credit union same day. And 30 days later, we start drafting your son's account based on the payment terms that you've set together. And so that's really how Zirtue works out of the box to kind of meet people where the pain point is. And again, with Americans borrowing over $200 billion a year. That actually makes them one of the biggest banks in the world. So we're just trying to meet people where the pain point is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Elizabeth, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I mean, I think we saw, just kind of reflecting on the history with Zirtue, we saw Dennis's vision early on, and we were excited about, the partnerships and the traction he had with some of the sort of more utility providers of the world. And we saw that there was an opportunity to apply that in the credit union space as well, because there's certainly plenty of places where people are making payments to their credit unions, whether that's auto loans or personal loans or what have you. So I think it was just a great example of, a technology that was out there in the world serving other segments of the market that we thought could really be beneficial to credit unions and their members as well.
And how do you see it benefiting credit unions? Why did you decide to invest on behalf, I don't want to say on behalf of credit unions, but it sort of is.
Yeah, I think credit unions are really searching for ways that they can serve the needs of their members and meet them where they are. And I think, as Dennis has highlighted, like, this lending between friends and family is something that has happened and that is happening and will continue to happen. And so how can credit unions, really sort of formalize that as a payment option for people when they need it most, and when they need that lifeline? How can they turn to their friend and family again most easily, like providing that as a truly convenient option where they don't feel sort of stigma around it, or they don't feel that there's a lack of transparency. It's like, this is a sort of credit union validated option, and that they support the member in using that as a tool in their repayment toolbox.
Mm-hmm. And so I can't charge him 20% interest, huh?
No.
Not on Zirtue.
But yeah, seriously though, the having a promissory note, I saw that you guys have promissory notes. That makes me if I were borrowing from my parents, which hopefully I don't do anymore, that makes it a little scary for me. I don't know. What is the consumer feedback on that?
I think consumers are fine with it. I mean, because we do, it is a digital promissory note. We keep a digital paper trail of how much is owed, how much has been paid. But if you think about it from sort of the three pillars, which is the borrower who's or the member who's trying to get from one bill to the next or one paycheck to the next without paying a 400% interest rate to a payday lender, then you have that lender, that family member or friend that wants to provide that financial lifeline, but do it in a more responsible way. And that's really where Zirtue Pay comes in, because we bake in that bill pay transparency. So as a friend or family member, you know exactly where those funds are going, where that money is going. So that's
Not Friday night pizza, right?
that's exactly right. And so we get really positive feedback, especially from lenders, family member, and friends that are helping other family members and friends out. That's one of the biggest value adds for Zirtue, is the fact that they know where the money is going. There's an automatic repayment, so they don't have to ruin Thanksgiving or holidays by asking for their money. Zirtue's already doing that in the background. And then I think last but not least, you have that biller or that credit union that's looking to collect those funds or get on-time payments. And that's really where Zirtue comes in as an alternative payment option to help them avoid those late fees and those collection fees and things like that. And really, ultimately, at the end of the day, create a better member experience, because we know the last thing credit unions want to do is ding a member's credit score or send them to collections. So that's where Zirtue Pay, and really, I love the fact that Discovery Fund, TruStage have been very intentional, not just about investing in high potential, high impact companies like Zirtue, but really, the first thing they think about is how can this benefit the credit unions, right? And so all those things have to come together. And I think that that's going to prove to be even more beneficial as the fund gets more intentional about investing in veterans. So,
Yeah. And so, I mean, you guys have to get paid somehow. I'm sure that the credit unions are the ones paying you, especially on a 0% loan.
I actually no. So the credit unions
No. Oh,
they don't pay at all. So it's free for
oh,
credit
sweet.
unions. It's free for all billers actually. So Zirtue, we get our fees from the lender on the front end. So if it's $100 loan, Zirtue charges a 5% service fee, and And really, so the total loan is $105. We
Got it.
send $100 to the credit union, and then we retain the $5, and that's how Zirtue
Okay.
makes money.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, what I was also thinking though, about the ROI on this, this time savings in collections too. I mean, that's a lot of time spent often not collecting stuff. So yeah, that's a huge ROI as well. Elizabeth, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, just to go back to what you said about the promissory note feeling
Mm,
sort of like formal and intimidating.
yes.
I think that's a, a genuine reaction, but it's an interesting one because consumers are signing their lives away like multiple times a day, whether it's opening a new credit card or doing a buy now, pay later plan. There's a lot of fine print that consumers are probably signing themselves up for and not necessarily reading, where the counterparty is not their friend or family. So I think it's actually, there might be a little bit of consumer education that's required, but I think signing a promissory note to your mom or to your sister is a much better proposition than signing one to a payday lender or
Right.
to some sort of predatory lender who, can start to garnish wages, and like, who knows what you're signing up for when you're actually filling out one of those loan applications. So yeah, I think there's probably some education required, but
Mhm.
if I had my choice, that's the number one person I would want to be signing a promissory note from. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. My
and
mother, I'd be scared.
I think the other thing to add to that, to what Elizabeth just mentioned, Sarah, is that the other benefit of Zirtue, that these are truly a relationship-based loans, right? So we don't
Mhm.
check credit scores or any of that. We do verify and do KYC and AML to verify everyone is who they say they are. But Zirtue is one of the only platforms where we give the lender the option to forgive the loan as well. And
I
so
was just gonna ask.
so I can't walk into my credit union and say, "Hey, will you forgive my car loan?" It just doesn't happen. And just to be able to extend that value or that benefit, and we do look at Zirtue Pay as a benefit for members, and I think that's something that we're working more and more to get credit unions on board with that. So
Yeah, and keeping members engaged, especially the younger members who are going to be using
that's right.
the
Yes.
beneficiary.
And Sarah, when you talked about your second point around sort of reducing collections times and burden, I think as we are continuing to see the financial services landscape evolve, I mean, I think, again, relative to other areas of people's lives, there's so much sort of anticipation of what consumers and customers and members are going to need. And I think that's where credit unions hopefully are going to win. And other financial institutions are trying to do this too, is right. Certainly when a member has a need and they've identified that need or raised their hand for help, you definitely want to be there to help them at that moment, but you also want to increasingly anticipate before they have that need, right? And so, before somebody goes into collections, giving them those options, that 2 or 3 different ways to pay that
Mm-hmm.
might be able to help them before they get into a situation, which, as we know, once you kind of enter into some of those spirals, it's increasingly more difficult to get yourself out of them. And so I think, however, credit unions can leverage technology to understand their members better and to serve them options, as they see that there is an incoming need, I think, again, will really win that member loyalty and help them sort of protect their financial health in the future.
And with the time savings, the credit unions can spend the time educating the members on, what it really means to borrow.
Yeah.
And the other places aren't going to be so nice as to forgive your loan, kind of thing.
Right.
So as I wrap up, I always allow my guests the final thoughts. Elizabeth, I want to start with you. What do you want to leave our credit union audience with today?
Well, I think, as Dennis has touched on a couple times, we started the Discovery Fund to invest in underrepresented founders in fintech. That originally definition included women, people of color, and LGBTQ CEOs, and we recently expanded that to include veterans. So Dennis now kind of retroactively qualifies under an additional criteria, but we're really proud to have Zirtue as, technically the first veteran founded business that we supported, and to have seen their trajectory and being able to, support them through the Ventures Fund has just been an incredible kind of progression of our relationship. And so we're really excited to find the next Zirtues and to find the other veteran founded businesses that are out there, because we know they face some of the same long odds that some of the other underrepresented founders we've been supporting face. So even though they're more likely to be business owners and to start their own companies, they just continue to have sort of less representation from a VC funding perspective. And I think we take our role very seriously as being some of that catalytic first capital into what we see as these promising fintech companies that can serve the next generation of consumers. So just, a call to the credit unions out there. If you're coming across promising veteran founders, we would love to meet them and see if there's an opportunity to work together.
And Dennis, I'm going to make your final thoughts, two final thoughts. First, I want to ask you about the meaning for you of TruStage Ventures Discovery Fund, extending that to veterans, and then also what you want to leave the credit union audience with.
Yeah, I think just to add to what Elizabeth said, I think, first of all, the Discovery Fund has just been, from my vantage point, really good at picking companies that have high growth potential and high impact potential. And I don't think there's probably anyone more qualified to sort of add this type of initiative or program, to their fund. And so that being said, too, as a veteran, I'm a Navy veteran, so I have a bit of a bias here, but yeah, I just think that veterans who make the biggest investment in America every day really do deserve folks being intentional about making investments in them. And I think this is where the extension of the Discovery Fund is really going to prove to be high value add, just in terms of high IRR and return on investment, but also just give a lot of veterans an opportunity to get their businesses to market and growth and everything else, especially if and when they have something that really caters to the credit unions, which I'm sure there are a lot of veteran entrepreneurs out there who actually have something like that. So I actually happen to think that veterans are a good investment. And so I give a lot of kudos to Elizabeth for her leadership on this, and TruStage really for leaning into veterans the way that they are. And hopefully other VCs and other firms will follow suit. So big fan of what they're doing and can't wait to see what happens next on it. So, and I would just say to the credit unions, as these veterans start to come through the pipeline from the Discovery Fund, please, please, please take time to meet with them and get to know their businesses and get to know those veterans and those founders to figure out how you can work with them, because I think it's very much mission aligned with what all credit unions do, whether it's a credit union like PenFed or Navy Federal that specifically caters to veterans. But a lot of these credit unions have veterans living in their community. And so I think it's really, there's a responsibility on all credit unions to sort of help TruStage and the Discovery Fund lean into this.